There was a man chosen to cross boundaries no mortal had ever stepped upon. A man taken from the dust of the earth and lifted into regions where light becomes an ocean, where silence speaks with an eternal voice. It was not a journey of distances, but of revelations. Each step carried him beyond the known, toward invisible gates that separate the human from the eternal. There, where the heavens open, where the stars do not shine alone, but obey a hidden song that marks the destiny of all creation. Amid impossible visions, he discovered that not everything high above shines. There are heights filled with harmony, but also prisons forged in fire and chains. Reminders of what was lost when rebellion touched the eternal. Gardens that seem never to fade, and abysses that consume without rest. Worlds that coexist in a secret balance, upheld by invisible guardians. 10 heavens awaited him, each one more vast, more fearsome, more glorious. An ascent that is not only a journey, but a sentence. Not only a vision, but a calling. This is the story of a man who witnessed what no one was meant to see. A man who walked where even angels tremble. This is the journey of Enoch, from the threshold of mystery to the throne of the Most High. The wind on earth stood still. The horizon shattered when the angels spread their wings and surrounded him. Firmly, they took him by the arms and lifted him up. The ground vanished, and the mountain, the valley, and the river were reduced to a distant memory. The world lay beneath his feet. Before him stretched an unknown heaven. They placed him high upon the clouds, where a golden radiance enveloped him. There he beheld an immense sea, without shores. It was not ordinary water. It stirred like a living being, rippling with clarity, reflecting every star in the firmament. Its waves shone like mirrors of fire and light. The air was filled with sounds, distant choirs, deep echoes, and a hum that seemed to rise from the stars themselves. The angels pointed upward, and Enoch saw the stellar rulers, 200 angels flying in perfect harmony around each star. Their wings shed reflections of cold fire, and every movement traced invisible figures in the vastness.
As the shepherd cares for his flock, so we care for the stars. Not one moves without our song.
Enoch watched in awe as those lights danced to the rhythm of celestial melodies. The whole firmament was a living choir, a stage in motion. As they moved on, they led him into vast chambers with walls that seemed carved from crystal and fire. Inside were stored the treasures of the world, deposits of snow ready to blanket the earth, dense clouds waiting to release rain, vessels of dew to refresh the grass, liquid oil like gold for lamps, and flowers destined to bloom in the fields. Each hall was guarded by silent angels who bowed their heads in reverence.
The dew, the snow, the flowers, everything we see below begins here.
His wonder grew with every step. He understood that what men thought natural had its origin in that heaven. Beyond the sea of light, the horizon gleamed even brighter. Enoch realized what he beheld was only the beginning, that more heavens opened before him. The air thickened, filled with golden particles floating like shining dust. Light surrounded him completely, and Enoch bowed, recognizing his smallness before that brilliance.
Do not fear. This is the first heaven. Here the journey begins. You will behold wonders that cannot yet be spoken. Prepare yourself, son of dust, for the ascent has only just begun.
The sea of light answered with a mighty surge. Enoch closed his eyes and heard the thunder of thousands of wings beating in the air. It was a sound that mingled power with tenderness. When he opened his eyes again, he knew nothing would ever be the same. He had crossed the threshold. The earthly world was behind him. The brilliance of the first heaven faded little by little, until its clarity gave way to a dark horizon. The air, once filled with songs, grew heavy and silent. The angels guiding Enoch led him toward an abyss where the light broke apart. He felt they were descending, though his feet never touched the ground. The gloom parted, and a sunless realm appeared. It was a vast space, covered in shadow. No ray pierced the darkness except for the red flashes of burning chains. Among them stirred giant, twisted figures. They were angels, but unlike any he had seen before. Their wings were withered, their faces deformed by suffering.
These are not men, and yet they reaped as men.
The chains resounded with a metallic echo. Some fallen angels groaned in silence, others roared in fury, but all remained bound. Their eyes glowed like dying coals. One of them lifted his head and looked at him. Enoch felt a strange weight inside. The angel spoke with a broken yet powerful voice.
We were guardians. We once flew in freedom. Now we are chained and forgotten in this darkness. You who walk in the light, carry our cry. Tell him we still breathe, though our eternity is sealed.
Enoch wanted to answer, but could not. His throat was mute before the vision of those captives. The guardian angels spread their wings, and the gloom receded a little. Enoch saw endless corridors full of chains. It was like a sea of prisoners, each trapped in his own ruin. The air was frozen, not by the climate, but by the cries and laments that filled everything.
Here are those who abandoned their place on high. They broke the harmony and were cast into this prison. Their cries will not cease until the appointed day.
The echo resounded against unseen walls. Enoch understood they were not mere rebels, but a warning for anyone who beheld that place. They came near to a deep chasm where the wails were strongest. There, the chains shone like iron in the fire. Some angels struck the walls with fury, but the bonds did not yield. Others stood motionless, like petrified statues. The air was charged with strange sounds, neither song nor speech, but a painful murmur. Enoch felt that if he remained there any longer, he would lose his breath.
Most High, do not let their chains drag me down.
The guardians surrounded him with their wings like a wall of light and lifted him up. The dark realm faded, and the cries were left behind like an endless echo. As he ascended, Enoch trembled. He had seen the prison of the fallen angels, a place of chains, fire, and eternal shadows. He knew that even the highest could fall. Silence returned, and with it, a new clarity. The air grew light, and a new fragrance surrounded him. It was not the smell of earth or smoke, but a fresh aroma, like a garden in full bloom. Before him appeared a paradise without limits. There were no walls, no borders, only a horizon covered with trees blazing with life. Their leaves shone like silver, and their fruits gleamed like gold and rubies. Among the branches, birds with radiant plumage traced circles in the air. At the center, springs of clear water burst forth. Their streams did not damage the ground, they made it flourish. Every drop seemed like liquid light, and when it touched the soil, new plant of vivid colors sprang up. The whole place was filled with soft songs, as if everything vibrated with an invisible music.
This place, it is rest. Here there is no fatigue, nor memory of pain.
In the distance, Enoch saw men clothed in white. Their faces shone like stars. They were not angels, but human souls. Their gazes were full of calm, and their lips seemed to sing though no sound was heard.
We are those who kept faith. Here life never withers. What on earth was sown with tears, here blossoms into eternity.
Enoch's heart trembled. He walked in the midst of a vision of joy, but then the radiance of heaven gave way at one edge, and what appeared changed everything. The garden turned into an abyss. The perfumed air became smoke and sulfur. Where once flowed springs, now burned rivers of fire. Song turned to screams, and amid the flames writhed trapped souls.
Too late. Justice burns us, and there is no shadow to hide us. The fire that gives life to the righteous here consumes us without end.
Enoch covered his face, unable to bear the vision. He understood that this heaven revealed two destinies, the joy of the faithful and the torment of those who rejected the light. The angels with him remained silent. Words were unnecessary. The scene spoke for itself.
Behold, son of dust, here is revealed the end of all flesh. The garden is inheritance for the faithful. The abyss is fire for those who denied the light.
The air vibrated with those words. Enoch felt fear and reverence, as though his own life were being weighed. He closed his eyes and tried to hold in his heart the memory of the garden, yet the cries of the abyss echoed just as strongly. With trembling steps, the angels guided him onward. The garden was left behind. The abyss faded into the distance, yet the image of that contrast would remain with him, a heaven that contained both the joy of the righteous and the pain of the condemned. The air brightened again, and Enoch felt new strength. His guides carried him higher, to a heaven where the light did not remain still, but moved in shifting flashes. Before his eyes appeared an immense sun, surrounded by radiant angels who accompanied it in its course. It was not chaotic fire, but a perfect sphere, obeying every command of the Creator. The angels circled around it, and their songs made the sun advance, marking the days of men.
The day does not move by itself. We carry the light upon the earth, and every dawn answers to our song. The heat that gives life is no accident. It is command.
Beyond, Enoch beheld the moon, bright and serene. Its light did not burn, yet it filled everything with radiance. It too was guarded by angels who tended it in its phases, from the slender thread to the full roundness. Its guardians marked with their light the passage of months and seasons. The stars, which from earth seemed countless, here had order. Each followed its path, accompanied by angels ensuring none strayed from its place. Some shone with brilliance, others glowed softly like embers, yet all obeyed invisible voices guiding them.
I thought the sun and the moon were masters of their course. Now I know invisible hands move them, hidden voices mark every season.
The angels carried him higher. There opened a great vault, like a clock of light and fire. Over that firmament, radiant currents flowed in circles, forming shining paths that turned in harmony. Each line marked times, days, months, seasons, years. Enoch heard the angels singing the change of each day. Their voices were different, some deep as thunder, others soft as harps. Together they formed a melody that gave order to the heavens.
What men call summer and winter, here begins. Winds, rains, and droughts obey an order. Nothing happens without song. Nothing happens without a guardian.
Enoch thought of men who sow without knowing who sends the rain, and of those who fear drought without understanding the source of times. He saw that the earth was not alone, but upheld by unseen guardians keeping its balance. Heaven was a living calendar. Every movement answered a song, and every song obeyed the Most High. Enoch raised his hands and felt the melody enfold him too. His whole body vibrated with the sounds that set the course of the stars.
If the sun does not move on its own, if the moon does not rise by itself, how can man believe he lives without guidance?
The air was filled with a warm radiance, as if the sun itself had descended to touch him. The angels bowed, and the song ceased for a moment, leaving a perfect silence. Enoch realized he had seen the heart of days, the place where the course of the seasons is decided. Without words, he was taken even higher. The heaven of time was left behind, but the music of its order went with him. The guides lifted Enoch into a quiet heaven covered by a soft gray light. There were no choirs, no thunders, only deep breaths, slow steps, and the murmur of small fountains. In the distance stretched terraces of pale stone with wide steps and roofless courtyards. Simple gardens grew among channels of water. At the edges, angels with weary faces kept their wings folded. Their armor bore marks, and their tunics had lost their shine. They were not in chains, but neither did they radiate joy. Enoch regarded them carefully. They were not rebels, but neither were they choristers of the throne. They dwelt in a place of waiting where they worked in silence. Some, bowing their heads, seemed to confess their ancient fault. They had not raised a sword, but they had kept silent when they should have sung. Now they learned again to obey, to listen, and to serve without splendor. They passed under a portico with small bells. They did not sound by wind, but whenever an angel bowed his head. Enoch saw ancient tables with simple tools, cords of light and transparent vessels. Nothing appeared great, yet everything sustained the place. Farther on, several angels repeated simple movements. They opened their hands, closed them, took a step, bowed. The air smelled of unleavened bread and damp leaves. In one channel ran warm water. When Enoch touched it, he felt comfort. A guardian explained that this heaven was a school. Here they corrected small faults that could topple towers. They learned to arrive on time with a single note, neither before nor after. The guardian led him to a wide courtyard. At its center grew a rounded tree that gave shade. Beneath it, several angels wrote on clear tablets. They did not inscribe judgments, but short promises. I will return to my post, I will remain attentive. Then they carried them to a gentle furnace where they were sealed in silence. There Enoch understood that there was pain, but also hope. The tears of those angels turned into comfort that descended to the earth. Sometimes a child received peace. Sometimes the weary found rest. At the edge of the heaven was a railing. From there one could see the prison below and, above, an unreachable radiance. The repentant angels would approach, gaze at both extremes, and return to their labor. Some confessed in low voice their desire to sing again with the great choirs, though for now they only sustained notes for others. Enoch bowed his head and left a silent prayer, asking that such hidden service might perfume the earth. The guides spread their wings. The courtyard, the bells, and the tree were left behind. Enoch carried with him the murmur of the school and the warmth of the running water. He had seen that heaven too was built with patient hands and small tasks. The heaven opened in a different radiance. The air was clear as crystal, and each step of Enoch resounded as though on invisible tablets. He was led into a wide valley where luminous constructions rose, taller than human towers, made of columns covered in burning symbols. The angels guided him to a great doorway, guarded by beings with serene faces and eyes of flame. They bore no weapons, but their very presence commanded reverence. When the gates opened, there appeared endless corridors with shelves of floating tablets. Each one glowed with a different radiance, as though it held an entire life.
Each flame, is it a man?
Each spark is a destiny. Here is kept every word, every action, every thought. The Most High commands, and we write.
The air vibrated with a faint sound, like feathers on a parchment. Thousands of angelic scribes moved in silence, wings folded, light styluses in their hands. They touched the floating tablets, and new lines kindled. Some shone like pure gold, others smoked with a dark glow. Enoch approached a tablet and saw clear scenes: a child learning to walk, a man raising his hand in anger, a mother sharing bread. Everything was recorded with precision, without embellishment or omission.
Men believe no one sees them, but here their steps are written.
Man forgets. We do not. These records will be opened when the day arrives, and the hidden will be revealed.
They walked further in. Enoch saw vast halls where thousands of tablets rose on their own, vanishing into the heights. Some gave off a soft glow like song, others crackled with a troubling radiance. In one corner, young angels practiced writing. Their hands trembled, leaving their lines incomplete. Older guardians corrected them with patience, ensuring nothing was wrongly recorded. Enoch trembled within, thinking that if every word was counted, who could be clean? But a guardian clarified that these archives were not meant to destroy, but to reveal what was true, and that all that was just would be honored. In another hall, Enoch saw something different: crystal spheres where images of the future moved. The angels did not touch them, they only watched in silence, awaiting a command that had not yet come. Enoch felt the weight of that place, but his guides soon led him away. As they exited, the air still glimmered with floating letters. The endless shelves were left behind, but Enoch understood that no human act was ever lost. The earth forgot. Heaven preserved everything. The journey continued, but Enoch knew he would never look at human life the same way again. Every word carried weight, every gesture was recorded. He had walked through the archive of destiny. The air changed. It was no longer clear as crystal, but intense and burning. Everything vibrated as if made of living fire. His guides remained silent, with reverent faces. Before him opened an immense heaven full of moving lights. They were not stars, but beings. Fiery angels, living rays stretching and contracting without ceasing. Their bodies were flames, their wings stirred like storms, and every movement made space tremble. Enoch thought, trembling, that they did not seem like creatures, but fire that breathed. A chorus rose. It was not a gentle melody, but a roar, trumpets, seas and winds all at once. The whole heaven resounded with those voices. Suddenly, cherubim and seraphim appeared. The cherubim had many wings and eyes looking in all directions. Their faces varied: lion, eagle, ox, and man, all blazing with eternal fire. Their wings covered their bodies, and when they moved, flashes of light opened. The seraphim were flames circling resplendent thrones. Each one had 6 wings, 2 over the face, 2 over the feet, 2 to fly in continuous circles. Their voices united in a mighty cry.
Holy, holy, holy is the Most High. The earth and the heavens are full of His glory.
That cry was repeated without end. Each time it was spoken, new flashes burst forth and the radiance grew. Enoch felt he could not endure the force of such praise and covered his face with his hands, convinced that man could not withstand that fire for even an instant. Amid the flames, Enoch saw thrones, countless, raised on columns of radiance. They were not empty. Each was occupied by celestial princes, crowned with pure light. Some held scepters like lightning, others books of fire. All gazed toward a distant point where a greater brilliance shone.
We do not rest. Day and night, we serve the Most High. His will is our movement. His glory, our crown.
The ground beneath Enoch became crystalline. Under his feet ran rivers of fire that sustained that heaven. The flames did not burn, but their heat reached the depths within. A guardian explained that here all fire was service and every voice was praise. This was the seventh heaven, where thrones and seraphim safeguarded majesty. Beyond, the radiance grew even more. Enoch lifted his eyes and saw in the distance a greater light, so intense that no eye could endure it. Everything he had seen seemed to circle that impossible center. His heart pounded. He knew he was nearing a higher mystery. While the choirs roared, "Holy," Enoch was lifted again. The burning heaven was left behind, but its echo followed him. The roar of the seraphim would remain with him. The radiance softened without shadows. Enoch could no longer distinguish above or below. Everything was clarity. The light seemed within him and outside him at once. He walked without feeling steps. His body was light. In this heaven, the light did not blind. It carried him. His heart grew calm. He had reached the eighth heaven. Amid the radiance appeared fine lines like threads of wind. They were not walls or paths, but tracings that appeared and vanished, forming an invisible web. With those threads, entire worlds were sustained. Enoch tried to count them, but they were beyond number. He thought in awe. Here all was light, everything spoke without a voice. There were no visible angels, yet the presence was strong. It felt like a hidden guard watching over balance. When Enoch formed a question in his mind, the light changed gently in reply. He understood that here served angels who desired neither name nor form. Their task was to maintain the inner order of creation. They did not fight or sing loudly. They adjusted what was hidden, the weight of things, the distance between worlds, the rhythm of life. The light condensed into a dome. Enoch saw floating signs that seemed both writing and music. Each sign corrected something on earth, calming a storm, giving rest to a person, closing an invisible wound. The veiled voice of the light whispered that when a heart bowed, a line was drawn here. When a city rose in pride, another was traced. They did not impose, they balanced. Enoch wished to bow, but there was no ground. Then the light formed a floor beneath him, and he could. It was not a gesture of weight, but of agreement with the order. The radiance revealed a translucent sphere. Inside were pulses that were not time, but ordered time. Each pulse touched the invisible threads and made them vibrate, bringing peace and balance.
Where we force, you refine. Where we break, you repair.
You must not see us. We are the silence that guards within.
At the edges of the heaven, the light became so pure it nearly vanished. There, Enoch felt his name grow light. All that was his remained, but without weight. There was no heat or cold, yet his chest was warm. There was no music, yet everything resounded in harmony. The veiled light seemed to teach that the small sustains the great when it is pure, and that a hidden act weighs more than a shout. For a moment, the light showed two directions, one descending to the heavens below, the other ascending toward a higher brilliance. Enoch knew it was not yet time to rise. He gave thanks in silence. His guides reappeared, like borders of light around him. Without words, they invited him to continue. Enoch was carried higher. There was no fire, no voices, not even the luminous purity of before. Around him was silence. No sound reached his ears, though he sensed a distant murmur like a faint heartbeat. They advanced without visible direction. There was no full light nor total darkness, only a dim radiance floating without form. Time seemed to halt. Enoch could not tell if seconds or centuries passed. Everything was still. In the space appeared columns of clarity. They were not walls or buildings, but pillars rising and fading. They stood motionless, firm, like guardians of an invisible boundary. Enoch felt reverence as he looked at them and whispered to himself that this heaven neither sang nor spoke, but was a threshold, a guardian. An invisible presence surrounded him. It was not fire nor wind. It was something older, a silent force that watched him. Enoch felt fear, not of falling or being harmed, but of being too near to what cannot be looked upon directly. Then he heard a voice. It came not from an angel nor a choir. It came from the very air, low, barely perceptible, yet it filled everything.
You have seen what is shown. Now you stand before what is kept silent. This is the threshold where even the highest tremble.
There was no song, for song interrupts. There was no form, for form conceals. Here was kept the silence before the voice. The air grew heavier. Enoch recalled all he had seen: the prison of the fallen, the garden of the righteous, the order of sun and moon, the fire of the seraphim. All of that had been open and visible. Here, in contrast, there was no access, only a frontier. The guides stayed behind, neither touching him nor speaking. Even they seemed restrained. Enoch lifted his eyes and thought he saw an impossible radiance above. It was neither sun nor flame. It was a throne veiled by dazzling clarity. He could barely sustain the sight for an instant before covering his eyes, thinking that if a man beheld it, he would dissolve like smoke. The silence deepened still more. All was in waiting. Then the voice returned, declaring that whoever reached this place must carry memory of all the heavens, for only thus could one stand before the 10th. Here the hidden was refined, the visible hushed, the temporal halted. It was the threshold. Afterward, there was no more sound. Only silence returned, heavy and firm, yet full of calm. Enoch bowed his head and closed his eyes. He knew the 9th heaven was not a destination, but a boundary. The limit between all creation and the nameless light. His guides spread their wings, and the atmosphere stirred like a veil about to part. Enoch drew a deep breath and prepared himself. The 9th heaven was left behind, with it the certainty of having stood before the threshold of the greatest mystery. They surrounded him in silence and began to lift him higher than all he had seen. There were no columns, no choirs, no lights comparable to the others. The ascent seemed endless until a radiance overflowed everything. It was not a fire that burned, nor a brightness that blinded. It was total light, without shadow, without limit. It filled the whole expanse and every thought. Enoch understood he had reached the 10th heaven, the place of the throne of the Most High. The ground beneath him became crystal, a transparent ocean stretching without end. Upon that sea rested thrones of fire shining like suns. Mighty angels bowed, casting crowns of light toward a central brilliance. Enoch trembled and whispered to himself that all he had seen before was only shadow, for here there was neither limit nor end. The cherubim circled, singing without cease. The seraphim blazed like columns of fire, covering their faces. The thrones cast eternal rays, all leaned toward the central radiance. In the midst of that sea of glory, one throne rose above all, surrounded by flames and rivers of splendor. Then a voice arose. It was not word, but thunderous sound. It pierced heaven and earth, water and fire, body and soul.
Enoch, son of dust, witness of my heavens, lift up your eyes and behold what no one has seen.
Enoch fell on his face. His body trembled like a leaf. He felt his life fading, that his heart could not endure another instant. He had no words. Then a fiery angel touched his shoulders to steady him.
Do not fear. You have been called to see. What you behold is not to destroy you, but that you may be a witness.
Enoch slowly lifted his face. What he saw was indescribable, a radiance containing all colors and none. A fire that did not consume, an ocean of peace and power. There was the throne of God, wrapped in unreachable glory. Rivers of fire flowed from the throne, descending to the lower heavens. Every spark kindled worlds, raised mountains, awakened lives. All creation was born there, and all would return to that origin. Enoch, in silent prayer, confessed that he was unworthy even to name the Lord of glory, and yet he had been brought there. The voice sounded again, this time closer, gentler, yet impossible to resist.
I have shown you my heavens, so that man may know they do not live alone. All is kept, all is counted, all has a destiny. Go and carry what you have seen. Do not fear kings or the mighty. Speak, for I am with you.
The sea of crystal vibrated under his feet. The chorus of angels multiplied. The seraphim cried, "Holy!" And the thrones bowed down to the floor of fire. The whole heaven quaked in worship. Enoch closed his eyes. He felt his entire being wrapped in that light. There was no greater mystery, no higher glory. Yet something shifted. The radiance changed tone. A different vibration passed through the sea of crystal. The angels looked to one another in silence. The rivers of fire stirred as if announcing something yet unrevealed. Then, with solemnity, the divine voice declared that what had been shown was not all. That there were sealed secrets which would not be opened until the appointed day. The echo shook the heavens. Enoch fell to his knees once more. He knew what had been revealed was only a part, that a greater mystery awaited. The angels surrounded him with their wings, and the light began to cover him completely. The throne still blazed, the choirs still sang, the rivers still flowed. But in his heart remained the certainty of an unrevealed secret. The journey had reached its climax. He had beheld the unreachable, and yet he sensed something greater was reserved. The whole heaven fell silent for an instant, as if it too were waiting. Enoch, with bowed face and trembling soul, understood that his story was not finished. The journey of Enoch reminds us that the visible is only a veil, that every star and every destiny obeys a hidden order. He ascended as dust and returned marked by the eternal. What he saw was not only wonder, but warning. If this journey moved you, share it. Follow, like, and subscribe to our channel, Bible Stories Untold TV, and join us on these paths where history and the unseen cross. Discover our other documentaries and be amazed. If visions of the end intrigue you, watch Apocalypse. If you wonder what secrets remain beneath the waters, watch Noah. If you want to know what happened to a prophet who never died, watch Elijah. If you wish to uncover how the most radiant light fell into darkness, watch Lucifer. For there are still mysteries sealed, and the next one may reveal the greatest of all.